Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's going on? It's Super Dave back at it again with the PA Political Revolution podcast, where we over here we strive to give you the best information, what's going on in politics, what's really happening on the rumors, the ins and outs of everything that's politics in Port Arthur, Texas, right? And today we have a special guest again. We have former council member and candidate, Mr. Harold Doucette. And Mr. Doucette, the reason why I've called you here today, right, is because they had a recent council meeting and basically want to talk about the streets program and the possible misappropriation of the funds in the street program, right? I know they're doing something different now than when you was on council. Could you go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and kind of speak on what's going on?
Yes, Harold Doucette, former councilman, District 4, and now candidate for councilman District 4. But, there has been a lot of talk I see lately by some candidates and council members about the progress that they have made in streets and streets that they have uh, labeled are already in the mill to be done. Well, the truth of the matter is, I have not seen the street program work as it was intended to for the last 2.5 years. And the streets program is designed so that council members will be allocated a portion of the amount of money allocated for streets for that year. Each council member will select streets in their districts. Before we done that street program, streets were being fixed by council finding out what streets the department, public work department, going to fix. And when you look at the streets that were being fixed, you could tell they were mostly political, and they wasn't necessarily throughout the city. It was just certain people were getting streets done.
Right.
So what we did, we said, let the council member pick the streets that he wants done that year. And if there's any problems with his selection, he has to face his constituents and explain why he made those selections. Rather than, Councilman, well, I don't know. We don't do that. The public work department do that. We eliminate all that. So the council member select the streets. Once the council member select the streets, it's supposed to be based on whether that street needs reconstruction or whether that street needs overlay. Now, if it was reconstruction, then money is placed for that street for reconstruction. If it's overlay, money is placed for overlay.
Right.
So therefore, you have an approximate amount of money that is allocated for the streets for that year. So you're supposed to get the contracts, and now the people that get the contracts are the contractors who are going to be doing the construction, the reconstruction. The city crew doesn't do reconstruction. They do the overlays. So with the reconstruction, those are the streets where the base is bad.
Right.
You have to get a new base, and then you put the overlay. And when a contractor does it, you have a warranty on that street because they got to do it right. And if they don't, they got to give us a warranty.
Okay, so let me go ahead and
Well,
hold you right there. So the city does not do reconstruction. We have to send it out to a
no,
contractor to do it, right?
we should be contracted reconstruction. That's the street program.
Okay.
And and we contract the reconstruction streets, and then we start doing the overlay streets. So what
Right.
you have in the city, you have contractors doing streets and the city crew doing streets. So you're doing more streets. We have not had a contractor doing streets in the city for the last 2.5 years.
Wow.
And the council always want to update. Be giving all kind of excuses, but at the end of the day, It's their decision to get the manager and the staff to understand we want it done. If y'all can't do it, this is a priority. We got to get somebody that can do it. We can't accept excuses. So, what has been happening is the city council approves that list and those funds per street when they do the budget. So the money is there. But when you're not doing reconstruction, you go and doing all these overlays. That's good if it's a street that was tapped to be overlaid. But if it's one that needed reconstruction, you're wasting asphalt, you're wasting money, and you're wasting time.
Okay, so let me
So
go ahead and get this straight right here. So you're saying that the streets that needs reconstruction, since we're not doing them, you saying that there'll probably be overlays done on top of the streets that need reconstruction?
oh yes, I mean I've known a couple of
Right.
streets that I know what was reconstruction just from the list what we were picking.
Right,
So
right.
when you put an overlay on it, then you're gonna find out the street gonna start giving, and you're gonna be back to square one probably anywhere 6 to 8 months.
Right.
You know, and that's what happens. The other thing is every street the city do, there's no guarantee, there's no warranty.
Yeah, right,
So
right.
you're not doing the plan. So if only the city crew are doing streets, you're not doing as many streets that you would do if you stuck with the plan and you have the contractors doing the reconstruction and the crew, the city crew doing the overlays. Now, that has been the problem. You
Mm-hmm.
know, we have not, and that's why you can't spend the money. Now, you've heard words to the effect of we have funds in the streets program that we don't have allocated. They're unallocated.
Right.
There's no such thing as unallocated. You know,
Yeah, you
if
have
the
to
money
allocate in
is
the budget.
there to be spent on this street, then you're tracking it. Okay,
Right.
so every street that is fixed, you're supposed to end up with the total cost to fix that street, whether the city crew do it or a contractor. So you'll know whether you underspent or overspent, or whether you had the right estimate for the street to begin with. So you do that. So if you're doing all of these overlays and you're not doing reconstruction, I mean it's a lot of money you're not spending. You're saying you save it. No, you're not saving it because you're not doing the street right. You're going to end up coming back and doing them again. The other reason is we got the money for you to do it right.
Right,
So
right.
what's the purpose of not doing it right?
So
And
so for the citizens, right? Just want to get a general understanding for the citizens, right? So basically, the
yeah,
streets program is we had received a $50 million bond, and the $50 million bond we were supposed to spend 10 million of that every year for five
each
years,
year for 5 years.
and out of these
And
and out of the $10 million, and you have streets broken up into reconstruction and overlays,
right.
and they're supposed to
And
what's been going on due per to the bond that we went out and got. There's the fixing streets with reconstruction and overlays, and the idea when you was on council, right, was supposed to have the city do the overlays and have contractors do the reconstruction, so we can kind of take a big dent of the bad streets and fix them. Is that correct?
there you go.
Go ahead on,
Now,
sir.
let me explain this. The year before we did the bond, the city put $14 million into the street program.
Right.
14 million. Okay. At that time, we had contractors doing streets, and we had the city crew doing streets. They didn't have equipment that were working. We found out that they wasn't doing streets,
Who wasn't
but
doing streets?
we bought out our city crews.
Okay, city crews.
Our
Okay,
city
gotcha,
crews.
gotcha, gotcha.
So when we found that out, we bought the equipment. So they got all the equipment, and they started doing street. In fact, if you go back to some of the uh, presentation we've had, because we used to ask for presentation. Uh, Hanny Tomei was over that uh, streets at that time, and they were showing the streets look like every time what they were fixing with the overlays. Okay,
Right.
then we had contractors that was actually working. So we had contractors and streets. So you're able to do more streets. Now we spent the 14 million in probably about a year and a half of that. But now this 50 million, we're in the third year, and I venture to say they haven't spent more than about 10, 12 million out of 30. So we went out and got a bond specifically for the purpose of getting these streets fixed. We're not in it to save money. We want to do them, and we want to do them right. We
Right.
don't want to waste money. So that is the purpose. The other thing is you have to be able to track this money and make sure you manage the money and use it right. And that is why when council approves the list of streets with the funds for each streets, once council approve it, the only way you could switch out a street, that's if you go back to council and request that council do the swap. And of course, if you did that, you got to say why. Okay?
Right.
Because once those streets have been approved by the previous council and you come on as new council, the new council has no authority to just switch seats like that. I mean,
Yeah.
streets. But they can. They can bring it back to the council and request that council approve the switch. Because when you make the
Right.
switch, you got to make sure that the money is still there
Right.
and about the same amount of money. The other thing is, if a council selected streets and already had these approved by the council, why would you start changing streets out? Well, that's political,
Yeah.
evidently, because you should not touch those because that's been approved by our council. And like I said, if you want to do it the way it's supposed to be. That
Hmm.
way, everybody's going to hear when they request to swap Cambridge for Bayou Drive. All the citizens are going to know who live on Bayou and Cambridge what's
Right.
just happened. So the ones on Cambridge say, "Hey, why y'all switching hours out?" But when you're not being transparent and citizens don't understand, that's what we have here. And my biggest contention with this is, why haven't we had contractors fixing streets?
Right.
We went out and got the money. The money is there. That's why you can't spend the money, because the bulk of the money is going to be for the contractor because they doing reconstruction. They're
Right.
not doing repaving. So you have to understand it. The, the thing that I'm upset about is we went out and got the $50 million bond
Right.
to fix streets. And when you get a bond, you have to state the purpose of the bond because that's what you should use the money for. No other purpose than what you selling the bonds to do. Well, that bond is for street improvement.
Right.
So therefore, the only thing you can do with this money is fix streets. If you don't fix streets, you're not supposed to spend the money on nothing else because that's why we selling these $10 million bonds every year so that we can get the money and fix streets. Well, when they decide they want to do this boulevard 12 blocks and they're going to make this a Taj Mahal type thing where you're spending 7.2 million,
Yeah.
actually, if they fix it, it's probably going to be less than 3 million, probably.
Right.
Okay. But all this other stuff they're doing, that's 4.2 million. Then they say, we're going to take it from the street fund. You're going to take $4.2 million from streets fund to do something that you're not supposed to do. That's beautification and landscaping and stuff. You want to take the money from streets. Of all places to take it, you're going to take it from street. That's our number one priority in the
Yeah.
state. I mean, in the city, you know. So you need to understand the money was to fix Woodworth Boulevard, the street, not the boulevard. That landscaping and all this fancy stuff costing all of this money.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know who was sitting in and listening to these discussions, but the council evidently knew that it wasn't the right thing to do because the council seen the drawing of what they wanted to do and they discussed it and they agreed, yeah, it's a great thing to do. They done it in a closed session.
Right.
Well, that's a violation of the Open Meeting Act. I can tell you that is not an item that is allowed to be discussed in a closed session. But if you discuss in closed session, then you don't give citizens a chance to get their input. The only reason I was able to catch it because I look at these agendas all the time and to look at things that I don't feel is the best interest of our city and stuff. And when it's to a point where I think it's very impacting, I'll go before council. And most of the time they say, okay, thank you, Mr. Doucette. Okay. And I have a seat and they just keep on going and doing what they're going to do. But what they fail to realize, it's on record what I just said.
Right.
So when they going on and just don't do it, when it's time to answer, you can't say, I didn't know.
Right. And
You
then,
were told before you voted.
right.
you know?
And let me go ahead and interject right there. Right. And I was actually watching the council meeting as it was going on. When I noticed when you spoke up on the changes of the boulevard, first off, the mayor was very disrespectful. He been disrespectful that whole council meeting for different citizens, right? And also then after I felt the mayor was very disrespectful with you, Charlotte Moses, Councilmember Moses, she seems to have a chip on her shoulder, right? That she said that hey, with 4 votes we can change anything, and yeah, can you go ahead and speak on the spirit of disrespect and the
Okay.
lack of knowledge in the council and what they can and can't do?
Well, that's something I noticed about the council when we left. The mayor has taken a, a, approach as it's his meeting, you know, because they could be there on time, but he won't start the meetings on time. So when you see that, that's saying that, you know, I get started when I'm ready. When if you go to the ordinance says the council meeting will start at a certain time on a certain day.
Right.
It says Tuesdays alternate between evenings and mornings. And they say a time, which means that's what time the city council of Port Arthur meeting starts. Uh, but, that's because the other council members won't police themselves because it's their job, because they're also part of the council. We had a few instances where, the mayor was running a little late and we give him like 5 minutes. And after that, he didn't show up. We started the meeting.
Right.
Mayor Pro Tem start the meeting because we understood that this is not our meeting and that we got to get started. That's why we have a Mayor Pro Tem. And if the Mayor Pro Tem is not there and you got 4 council members, then one of the council members should be designated and they start the meeting.
Right.
But the citizens don't sit and wait for us to conduct their meeting. It's a City of Port Arthur meeting. Now, when we go to rules of decorum, the rules of decorum is set for all visitors or attendees as well as council people. And council should understand that when citizens come before us, sometimes they are upset and angry. But if you're listening, you don't disrespect or you don't overtalk them or you don't cut them off. You got to handle it in a professional manner, and
Absolutely.
therefore you could keep the rules of decorum, and you can enforce them. But if you are violating them,
Right.
then how can you enforce them? And the mayor has a tendency call on somebody, and then he says, "Wait a minute," and he interrupts, and he calls somebody to do. Well,
Right.
if the other council members are going to be the voice of the people, and they want their uh, meetings to go properly, then one of them should simply say, "Point of order." And when everybody's out there, you say, "Mayor, you recognize this person, or you recognize the speaker. Will you please let them speak?" And when you do that, then I found that the mayor is not going to go all off. But if you allow him to do as he please, then he's going to do what he think he should without knowing what is written. But our meetings have never been conducted. When council members are not familiar with Robert Rules of Order, and they don't understand about motions and stuff. When it's time to vote, the mayor has to ask the city secretary, "Okay, we take the vote." After 4 years, you should not be asking that.
Yeah. Right.
But that's our meetings, and you look at our meetings as opposed to other cities surrounding, and watch how they conduct business. It's kind of embarrassing, but we have to understand that when we want to run for office, we have to uh, be able to learn and do the research. So every candidate that's running for office right now should be reading Robert Rules of Order. They should be looking at the charter. They should be looking at different ordinances and codes in there. Why? Because if you win, you won't get up there having to sit up there and just go along to get along.
Right.
You'll have some type of understanding. And after about 5 or 6 months, you find everything else is just repetitious. You'll be able to talk ordinance and stuff with people without going to look it up because it's just repetitious. But, that's something that we have to take a look at as citizens, because I just saw this thing on Facebook today. It was by a coach, Lacey, and it was in reference to accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to step here for about a few seconds. I'll keep talking
Yeah.
because I want to read it verbatim. Because when I read it, the first thing I thought about was our city, the
Yeah.
citizens of the city, not just the council. But here's what it said about accountability. It says, what you permit, you promote. What you allow, you encourage. What you condone, you own it. So if you think about what's happening in our city now, that's exactly what's happening. Unless citizens understand, your voice is strong. You know, uh, our government is set up by rules with codes, ordinances, laws, state and federal, but a council does not have authority to break any of them. I don't care if they have 7 votes. You
Exactly.
know,
Exactly. And let me
I,
just go ahead and just jump in right quick on that one, right? When I posted the little clip, right, the little clip of the video with you speaking and Charlotte Moses speaking, right? And when Charlotte Moses said with 4 votes they can change anything, a lot of people was really upset about that. Man, it was like a lot of people's really shocked that the gall of the actual council can just figure that they can go ahead and change rules and they figure they're above the law. Now with these grants, well, not grants, but these bonds, right? All of these streets have to be accounted for on an actual budget. And it doesn't really make
and
any sense just because you want to go back and change the budget, you can change it. I mean, it's just crazy. You can go ahead and speak, sir.
but see, here's the deal. The reason that, they're moving money like this is simple. Uh, in order to amend your budget, it must be dealing with emergency, dealing with public health and safety. And the reason the state implemented that is to stop people from putting money in a budget and then just doing anything with it, okay? So those are laws, but the state got them in place. But if the state don't know you're breaking them, you know,
Right.
it's like they don't know. But you can't do those things. It's also dealing with government. You'll find out that if you do something or council vote on something that is found to violate ordinance, codes, or laws, the part that violates the code, ordinance, or laws is voided. Now, if part of it is still good because it didn't violate anything, that part will stand. But the part that violates it
Right.
is voided. So council doesn't have that authority because, because if you go back to when they're sworn in, they take an oath
Mm-hmm.
to uphold and enforce the code, the ordinance, and the laws of the state and federal government. You take an oath to do that. So you can't violate it. I don't care with a majority vote.
Right. Right.
So, and that's what the citizens have to understand when evaluating council members' actions and what we do, because we as council people don't have the authority to violate none of that.
Right. Right.
So, I think that was a statement there. But then again, we have to take a look at our overall system here. We have a city attorney that should have corrected it, and said so. Just like the money deal, when I explained it, when she understood that that's for this landscaping and stuff, she should have said it's not dealing with improving the streets. You can't use the money
Right.
because right now, I don't see that happening really. I mean, that's too easy. I mean, they're gonna find out seven votes. Seven votes ain't good for that. That's you can't do it. That bond money can only be used for streets. But the streets is the number one priority.
Yeah.
That's what I could not understand. We got this money and we thought we was going place. And, that's one of the reasons that I decided to run again.
Mm-hmm.
We just have to do what we're supposed to do. And somebody has got to understand the right and the wrong and see where people get kind of off a little bit. They say the council as a whole. Never council because if you got one person that knows what it says and they put it out there, if the other council members start debating it like, well, that's your opinion, then you bring the city attorney in. And when you bring it in and you're talking black and white, that answer going to always support the black and white. But if you don't know what the answer is, then you're not bringing her into the fight. Then it occurs to where you're doing what you want to do. And I think a lot of the problems where they're having is because the council is conducting too much city business in closed session
Right.
that is
Absolutely.
not allowed because there are items on there, and I don't think the items that were contentious, like Pleasure Island, the contract, and also Woodworth Boulevard, all those items have been discussed in closed doors. So at some point in time, somebody's gonna have to answer to the Open Meeting Act. Then some people say, "Oh, that's how they are." Well, you know, you'll find out they got an answer to, and they will. They will. But what are we gonna do in the meantime? Well, we have to understand. We have to keep moving as a city.
Right.
So we have to understand we got to get contractors in here and start doing these streets and doing them properly so that we could get a warranty on these streets.
Yeah.
And the ones that got a good base that doesn't need but resurfacing, then we're doing a great job. The city crew is doing a great job, but the city crew is doing streets that have bad base.
Yeah.
And that's waste. Just to say we done a street. And if you have them to pull the list of the streets that have been completed, when someone says we done 93 streets or 100 streets,
Right.
the question be, okay, how long though? You know,
Yeah.
you done these in the last 3 years?
And tell you the truth, they should be done right about now, right? For with 2018 and
Oh,
19, we received the money. The street program should be done right now.
well, I could tell you right now, no, we wouldn't have been done. But what would have happened was there would have been a lot of streets that are completed because what you'd have had contractors doing streets and also the city doing streets.
Yeah.
You see, so by having contractor and city, you'll be doing more streets. So
Mm-hmm.
you would be farther down the road than where we are.
Right.
And like I said, you know, they haven't had a contractor, not that I know of, that doing a street during this council's term, 2.5 years. And every time the council would ask for a report, they would get it and well, we're doing this, we're doing that. At some point in time, you got to say no, unacceptable. Because I'm not even into purchasing. But if I get in, I'm going to find contractors and come in here and work these streets. Somebody want money.
Yeah.
So there's no excuse not to spend the money. And, we have to be able to understand the street program as it was designed. If to run that way, you wouldn't have went that long without having contractors in the street because it says select, fund, and contract.
Yeah.
It's a process.
And man,
So, when you select the street, when that funding went in, the next thing should have been contracting. So if you're not contracting, you're not doing the street program.
right. And it seems like it's
Simple.
a part of a bigger problem too, right? Because I'm looking at it like this. If if our finance department cannot pay the vendors the bills, right? If we can't pay the contractors not maybe reluctant to come on over, and heck, if we can't pay them, and then we change in the actual budget, it seems like it's just a lot of work that's going on the finance department where they actually cannot do simple projects, right? Simple things like paying our bills, right? Simple things. So it seems like when you combine changing of the budget, can't pay vendors, all of this financial, it seems like it's pointing to a deeper rooted issue, right? And I think I just heard the city manager say that we hired another assistant with financial person, right? So
Okay.
it seems like we don't have the right person. Instead of getting rid of the right person, we're hiring another person. So we have maybe one and a half qualified people. It just seems like a big waste of money and a big problem with the finances in general.
Well, not only that, but the other thing too is when council people go to these conferences, that's where I got a lot of knowledge too. When they attend these sessions, they be talking about budgeting. Okay,
Right.
so you gotta understand budget. You gotta understand the process. You gotta understand the laws in order for you to understand if we're doing it right or not. So by them not having an understanding, then the staff is able to bring anything to them, and they They vote yes or no. Most of the time, yes. I'm going to read this verbatim to everybody. This is Local Government Code, Title 4, Finance, Subtitle A, Municipal Finance. This is Chapter 102, is Municipal Budget. And if you go to that law, that Local Government Code, Chapter 2, you go to Section 102.003. And one of the statements in that section is, the budget must show as definitely as possible each of the projects for which expenditures are set up in the budget and the estimated amount of money carried in the budget for each project. So now this is a local government code I just read.
And you says which
Texas
one?
local government code.
Which
It's
section again?
it's chapter 102, municipal budget,
Right. I'm looking at that.
and you go down section 102.003.
Okay,
It says,
itemized budget, right.
there you go. There you go.
Right. Yeah, I had it up earlier. When you was talking, right.
And what that says is, when you're making your budget, every project that you want to do that year, you have to put in the money, the estimated money to fund it.
Right, yeah.
So that's in the budget. So basically, I like the idea of doing woodwork. I think it's a main avenue. I think it's impact on a lot of people. So I have no problem with that. Okay. But the problem I have is when you start taking money from streets to make the boulevard look pretty.
Yeah.
Okay. But here's the deal. Woodworth Boulevard wasn't a project that was funded this year.
Right. There you go. Yes, sir.
So if council member understand this, although it's a good thing to do, the fact of that, they shouldn't have done. What they should have done was say, okay, we'll fund it and budget it for next year.
And that's
because you didn't. So the $3 million that they agreed to take from all of the district to do woodwork, they did it, but they did it like in December or November.
Right.
November,
yeah.
December. So that means you're funding a project that you did not include in your budget.
And what's the purpose of having a budget?
That's a no-no.
A budget.
If you're not going to.
Right. A budget laws. If you're not going to follow by it and just do what you want to do willy-nilly, you can't really do that.
And see, that's the problem that I have when council members won't take the time to check this out. I mean, if you don't know, it's not a crime not to know. But if someone says something, go read it. And when you read it, then come back and stand pat. 7 votes don't outrule this code. This government
right,
code.
law. Yeah, it don't overrule law.
Hey, it don't. So at the end of the day, when you read that and you tell city attorney, am I wrong? No, you're right. Well, guess what? That's dead now. It's solved. But if you're not following this, but the people in finance supposed to know that.
Right.
They're supposed to know it's a no-go.
Finance.
So when the city managers says we need to do that, they should step up and say, well, you can't do that. Why? Because we didn't put it in the budget, city manager. See, when people start doing their job, then your money will be managed and it'll be used properly. But you have to understand and know these codes, and you got to know about the budget.
Yeah.
You got to know that we just can't put money in the budget and use it for something else. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Because whatever you don't spend is income and is rolled over to the next year in the general fund. See?
Yeah.
So there's another thing too For the last 2 years, they have not received a in a year report on the budget. How did we end the year?
Mm-hmm.
Which departments overspent? Which departments underspent? Why we need to know that? We need to know that because we made the budget this year. We gotta know whether we gotta give them more money or we gotta take money from this
Right. And also, does
one. So
the Texas government codes under itemized budget, does it say anything about unallocated money?
you see, because in a budget, you have projected revenues.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you projecting to get $10 million in revenue and everything you plan on doing that year, your expenditures only $9 million, your budget okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your budget okay.
Yeah.
But you have to understand that money you got over for revenue is not money you got in it. That's what you projecting you're gonna get to cover these expenses for that year.
Right.
That's the income. That money there is what you projecting. You see, that's why you gotta start out like that. That's why you gotta stick with what you budget for. And that's why the state say you can only amend it for an emergency dealing with public health and safety. So if it ain't dealing with public health and safety, the state said you can't amend the budget. So if you look at this Woodworth Boulevard, they asked council to approve using $4.2 million. They say that is unallocated in street fund.
Right.
But then the last part of that said, and amend the budget. Well, you can't amend the budget. You know, it's not there. So
Mm-hmm.
you're talking about putting in a project that you didn't fund for. You
Right.
can't do projects with money in your general fund that you didn't budget for.
Right.
You can't. Now, if you budgeted for an item and you're coming up short, then you can find ways you may shift, okay? But you're moving the money to an item that you did budget for.
Yes,
So that you have to understand how that money is supposed to be used and how you manage it. And if you don't, then you're relying on the city manager, finance, and department directors to come and tell you it's okay to do this.
Yeah.
And it's not okay. It's not okay. And we don't care. Because as a councilman, I said it many days, the staff and the manager, I don't blame them for what they bring to me. But if it ain't right, I ain't going for it. But you have to know. So you have to be prepared. That's what we have to understand. And when I saw the figures of how many streets, and I heard that mentioned like 100 or 90, so whatever it is, I'm saying, okay, but over what period of time
Right.
these streets were done?
Exactly.
Okay, so if you're talking about in the last 3.5 years, okay, so you ain't talking about doing these many streets in 1 year. You know, the other thing is, okay, if all these streets we done, how many of these streets were actually reconstructed as opposed to just put an overlay on them?
Right.
Okay, because that's one way that could be deceiving about your street program is when you start putting a lot of overlay on streets that you have to reconstruct. Well, they look good now, but 6-7 months down the road, you're back to square one when the streets start giving and breaking. So now you're wasting money. So we get the money. You can either use the money and use it properly, or you can waste it. And overlays over street that need to be reconstructed is a waste of money. Taking any money out of streets for anything other than a street is violating the bond.
Yeah.
It's that simple, you know. And that's what I didn't understand. And I listened to a couple of comments. I don't know which council members, because I was there, but they basically said, you know, it's something that we're gonna do that's gonna be there, our legacy of what we leaving. Wait a minute. We don't do things for council. We do things for the citizens in the city.
Yeah, man.
Okay. So you don't tell the citizens we're gonna do it. Then the other thing, I had a conversation with one council member, and the council member was telling me, says, look, everybody keep talking about beautifying the city. Beautifying the city. Well, where we gonna start? This is a start. You against start? We gotta start somewhere. And I let him when he finished talking, right? I said, wait a minute, hold on. We talking about streets, but if you want to talk about beautification of the city, I'm gonna tell you where that starts.
Yeah, the
That starts
foundation.
where your code enforcement, your inspectors, start giving warning and citations, so everybody understands that this is the ordinance that keeps this city clean and attractive. The other piece of that is, if you want to beautify the city, pick up this hard trash every 2 weeks like you're supposed to, where it don't be sitting on the road forever. And if you want to keep it clean, pick up the garbage once a week like you're supposed to. So trash don't be blowing all over the place. I
Right,
said,
yeah.
you're not going to beautify the city until you start enforcing your ordinance that pertains to the beautification of your city. And I don't care if people complain. I've heard people say when they talked about parking cars on the yard in front. I hear people complain about it. Well, the bottom line is, it's an ordinance. It's an ordinance. It's it's so that we keep everybody off lawns, or we have lawns and stuff. Cut your grass so that we keep all the grass cut. But the city has to do what we have to do as a city,
Yeah.
and that means pick up the garbage on time, pick up the trash on time. Those people who don't want to cut grass, quit cutting their grass and look here, make them cut it or fine them. Okay? It's that simple. But you cannot keep cutting grass because they don't cut it.
Yeah.
You're using taxpayers' money again. It doesn't meet the common sense test. And people are creature of habits. And I'm included. If I know that's how it is, oh, I'm gonna go by it. But now if I know that I could get away, okay, I ain't gonna do it this time. But when you're enforcing these codes and all that, you can't see a car on the grass in this block and talk to them. Then you pass the next one and you don't say nothing. You can't do it that way. It has to be across the board. You see it, you give a warning, give them time to correct it, come back and check. If it ain't correct, give a citation. Oh, people get upset, but guess what? Everybody getting upset are the people that's violating it. So do you really care? No, because the majority of people are following the ordinance and they want a clean city.
Right.
And their city gonna be clean. But you don't take money from streets to make something pretty for 12 blocks, but then the rest of the city
Yeah.
is
Streets.
crumbled.
Yeah.
I mean,
Streets messed up, water
so
lines breaking, ditches
yeah,
cluttered with
so that
things
means,
flooding. Right. Yeah.
so I guess everybody come here, we're gonna run them over there to Woodworth Boulevard. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
And
A straight line
but
into the city.
yeah, but I heard them mention also the downtown redevelopment. Well, you won't do Woodworth, but the main street to go downtown is Proctor.
Right.
And it's in terrible condition for Main Avenue. I mean, you go down there, you got bumps, and your tires get out of line on that one.
Right.
You could take that $4 billion and do all of Proctor all the way from Woodworth downtown.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those things that, citizens, when they hear it, they got it. You got a council person, call them, let them know, hey, you need to reconsider this, you know, because some of you want to get reelected. Well, guess what?
Yeah.
Anybody taking street money with the way these streets in this city look, I don't think they have the best interests of the citizens in the city
Absolutely not.
at mind, especially when it has been established that streets are the number one priority in the city.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You
Yeah.
seem to hit everything the nail on the head right there, brother. You seem to have hit
Yeah,
the nail on the head.
well, we have to be able to identify problems, and citizens have to understand, uh, you know, understand what's really right. Sometimes, you know, council has made decisions and citizen complain and stuff, but actually it's for the best for the majority of the people, and stuff. So, you know, when they're doing good, I'm the first one to give anybody credit. And with me, I'm not personal, but I tell you, if you're making a wrong decision, I have no problem. And that's what's frustrated me the most this last 2.5 years is to go to council and present something to council in a respectful manner, only to have them disregard.
Oh yeah, that pissed me off how the way they was disrespectful. Oh, that made me so mad.
Oh, yeah. And the killing part about it is, if you don't know, if you got any question about what I'm saying, ask the city attorney. And if she don't table it, go do your research. If you go and read about bonds, you're going to come back and say, we can't do it. You're not going to say, if we got 4 votes, you're going to say, we can't do it. So sometimes it becomes pretty frustrating, but I really taken that real strong to, I'm gonna follow that one through because you know we got that bond and we got that bond for a purpose. We
Yeah.
heard the citizens. We heard the citizen. That's what the citizens want. So guess what? That's what we want to. That's what we went out and done. And to have it to stand still for the last 2.5 years, and then people try to say that they're doing a good job. Oh no 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 no.
Right.
You know, no 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 no. You know, if they'd been doing a great job, if they'd been good job, citizens wouldn't be uh, screaming about street because there would have been more streets done by now. You
Right.
know,
And this right here would be my solution, right? If I was on council, any stupid thing that the mayor, council say anything about misappropriating these funds, I'd ask the attorney. I'd say to the attorney, ma'am, what's your opinion on this? What's your legal opinion on this? I'd make her give a legal opinion on the spot about it. And heck, if she lied, if she knowingly lied, I mean, you can get her for some ethics violation. To me, it seems simple. Every single crazy problem they have, I would make the city attorney speak on it, give her a legal opinion on there, and just make it to the city attorney. Is this right? Can we due to the bond covenant or the rules of the bonds, can we go ahead and move $4.2 million from the streets program, which we got the bonds for, over to some palm trees, some beautification type projects? Get on the record.
well, the thing is, uh, that if that would have been discussed in an open meeting, I don't think that it ever would have came to fruition because I don't think the council people had the audacity to say that they're going to take street fund to make this thing beautiful. The other thing is that when they discussed it and they seen a drawing of it, council people saw it in the executive session, uh, and then they took it and they put it down in the lobby of City Hall. So if you wasn't ever at City Hall, you would have no idea on what they're talking about and all that. But citizens didn't see it, so citizens don't have the opportunity to go and give their side or express their concerns, which is the right of citizens. So basically, there's not transparency to citizens and to us, and that's been the biggest problem for the last 2 years. We've had no transparency. Uh, everything is being discussed in closed session. Then when it comes to the open session, it's coming in the form of a resolution. So when they read the resolution, they say any question. Nobody got any questions because they already decided on what the consensus was. And when you're on council and you get to the point where you do a consensus, you know how the vote going to come out. So ain't no need in putting it at the end of the day. So that's a big thing. Right now, the biggest problem that we're having is there's no transparency. And the reason there's no transparency because the thing we talk about, misappropriating money, doing projects that you didn't budget for, that you shouldn't, okay? Giving contracts to a bid, that's something that was another topic at council was awarding a contract to a bridge at the golf course without going out for a bid. And as it turned out, they said the reason we did it because they said it was an emergency and it was a safety factor. Well, the bridge didn't get in that condition overnight. That's the first thing. The second thing is, they had sent a bid out for this same bridge in September 2020, and the person with the low bid was notified that they had won the bid. And then they decided not to do that bridge in September 2020. So what they essentially did was notified the person that was selected that they weren't going to do it, but they compensated for the time for submitting the bid and preparation of the bid. So now they decide to do it as emergency. So rather than going back to the person that won the bid, and the person that won the bid actually was the person that fixed the other bridge.
Right.
And they had no complaints. So this person had a bid in way lower than your 124. So if it's an emergency and it's safety, why don't you call the person that already done fixed the other bridge? They already gave you a bid. See if they'll keep the same bid. And if so, give it to them because you already went through the bid process with it. Just go on and do it. And you save money. So for you to say this is an emergency, well, since 2020, when you got the bid you wanted to fix and you didn't fix it, so now you said an emergency. I don't think so. You know what the bid was before, but now you want to give $124,000. Those are type things that somebody should start being held accountable.
Right.
And it's like that saying I read to you earlier. If if you condone it, you own it. Yeah. So if you permit it, then you encourage it. So at some point in time, we have got to get out of that. This city is set up that I don't care who the council persons are. I don't care who the city manager is. I don't care who the staff is. If they would run this by the policies, procedures, codes, and ordinances and laws, if they would run this city, you wouldn't know who it was. You could change any one of those, like I said. You could change the whole council. You could change the city. You won't know any difference if they run the city the way it's supposed to be run because it's written. But we are people now. They run it because they think whatever we decide, we do it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why we haven't really progressed, because we haven't placed emphasis on what is important to citizens in this city. What's important to citizens is getting our garbage up in time and manner, getting our trash up in time and manner, get our water bills straight, okay? Uh, 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 Stop sewage from backing up in my home. Fix these streets. That's what citizens
Oh man, yeah.
want. So council should understand all the bright ideas council have come up with. You don't need to come up with ideas. Just do this. Just do that, and everybody be happy.
Oh man, you just reminded me about the sewage. Man, that was disrespectful how they did Mr. Hancock. Mr. Hancock came up there talking about his sewage.
but
Short,
but you know what though,
go ahead.
Mr. Hancock, Mr. Hancock was on his game
Yeah.
because his purpose for being there was simply, look, I see where y'all finna spend $16.9 million over on a project for drainage over there, but I've been complaining about sewage back at my house
Two
for
or
three
three.
years.
Yeah, 3
No,
years.
3 years. He
Yeah.
said he he gave him a date. But the part that was sort of puzzling to me is how Dr. Haney came up there and said that uh, we found out that that lift station, the pump is too small. We needed a bigger pump. We
Mm-hmm.
ordered a pump. The pump is in. We're in the process of putting it in, and we're also going to be sending the telescope down there to take a look inside to see if something else is broken there. And we cleaned out the drainage stuff. Now, all of this is working now. It sounds great. It sounds great. The question that I would ask if I was there, because that's the first thing came to my mind. Why didn't we do this 3 years ago?
Right, exactly.
Everything you said to me sounds great. But my question is, why didn't we do this 3 years ago? This problem would have been fixed 2 years ago because
Exactly.
it did require that what he's saying is coming out of the general fund. So that means you could have funded it 3 years ago.
Exactly. But he was promised a change was coming. He was promised a
Well,
change was coming.
yeah, but see, that's what I'm talking about when we have staff says things. It sounds good. And trust me, I I like what I heard. But my question is, why didn't you do it 3 years ago? That's what I want to know.
Right, right, right.
Why
Absolutely.
didn't you do everything you're telling me now? Why didn't you do this 3 years ago? Because this problem would have been solved.
And Councilmember Moses had the nerve enough to tell him, hey, she still stands by that statement. And before he gets 100, she believes that he's going to have the state of the art pipes.
Yeah,
This is a
yeah,
circus. It's a
you
circus.
know, yeah, but though, I've been there, and I understand that some council members make statements sometimes. In hindsight, when they think about it, they probably say, "Oh, I shouldn't have said it." But
She didn't say
when
that.
you say something, it is one thing, but when the actions is supporting it, then it becomes a big deal.
Right, yeah.
And sometimes a council member doesn't understand it. That same way when a council member is addressing someone who come before that council, right? As long as that person don't curse, if they voice shows that they angry, that's expected. You're supposed to understand that. If they get to the point where you cannot communicate with them, you just let it go. You stop talking. But you don't get into debates with people coming before council because people who are watching will then say, well, I ain't going before them. You want people to come before council. And of course, they changed the rule when I done the presentation on
Yeah. Open
the
meetings.
open meeting act. Yeah, they went back and changed the rules so nobody can do a presentation like the mayor, the city manager, or one council member invite you to them. No one has the right to invite no citizen to come before that council. That's the people elected the council. That's their council.
Exactly.
How you gonna how you gonna say that they can't come before you unless you invite them?
Oh, you remind
You know,
and you remind me of another thing. When I think one of the council members was trying to get somebody from the drainage to go ahead and talk to Mr. Hancock about his issue. The city attorney said no. That's a violation of the Open Meetings Act. How is it a violation? You trying to get this citizen some more information. Local government's supposed to
Well,
be transparent.
well, in that particular case, right? I don't know what the city attorney was thinking about.
Yeah.
Maybe she was thinking like a topic, right? The topic is uh, he's here as a speaker, and he's supposed to say what he has to say. But the back part of that is whenever a person appears before council as a speaker with a concern, council can do like they do me, where they don't want to deal with it. They say, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In other words, sit down.
Yeah. Sit down and
Or
shut up. Yeah.
they can, yeah, or else they can actually try to answer your concern. And once they go to that mode, right, your 5 minutes, it's out because it ain't you talking no more. It's the council. And
Right.
if the
Yeah.
council says something and asks you something, you can reply. And that can go on forever. And if the council feel that they need to have staff to come in and give information so they can understand whether he have been served or not, then that's all part of the concern. So
Exactly.
he was a guest speaker. He made the concern, but from then on, it's council now. Council can keep that topic there all as long as it's dealing with his topic. So
Yeah.
if they call somebody to speak on this topic, that's totally acceptable for the simple reason that that is his topic. And it's council requesting it, not him.
Right. And I read that Open Meetings Act left and right, back and forth. Right. And there's nothing in there that said you can't you can't keep talking,
Well,
because the
well,
purpose of it is to be transparent, to talk. Transparency.
well, well, see, that's what council has to do. They have to be able to respond to citizen concern.
Yes.
And that's like every time I would go there when they tell me, okay, thank you, right? Well, why don't you address it? Why don't you say something? Well, it didn't take me long to figure out you can't say nothing. So you got to just let it go away. So you can continue doing what you want to do. And when people understand, that's why when I go to a council, I'm very respectful of them, but I won't let them disrespect me. There's been a couple of times when I had to actually let them know we don't want to go that way. You treat me like I treat you. I don't single no council member out. I talk to the council as a whole, and that's what people coming before the council should do. And it should be in a respectful manner, and I do that. So there's no need for, and above all, you don't interrupt people.
Yeah,
If
bro.
you if you if you recognize them and you give them the flow, whether it's at the podium, whether it's another councilman, nobody should be speaking but one person at any given time. One person. And the only person that is speaking is the person who has been recognized by the chair. That's it. That's how you keep meetings ordered. That's why sometimes you hear this back and forward. Well, no, we're gonna wait. No, I'm asking a
Hey,
question.
hold on, Deuce. Hey,
Mm,
let me go ahead and end this right quick. Something came up right quick.
yeah,
All right,
all
thank you.
righty. But
Take these. Bye.
all right, bye.